hello, everyone. Hello. My name is Michelle Mickey Jones, and I am a business owner, a social worker, and a writer that helps other writers to write. I help them by helping them to develop skills and techniques that allow their voice to be heard. That's what I do. That's my passion. That's what I like to do. That's what I've been gifted to do. That's what I've been experienced in doing. I also take my social work skills and techniques that I've learned along the way so that we can make sure that that voice is very clear and their own, authentic, so that when they speak, people know that it's them that is speaking. So whether it be writing a book, whether it be writing a essay, whether it is writing poetry, it is your solid voice that people hear. That's what I help you to do. Now, what we're going to talk about today is active listening. That's right. We're going to talk about active listening. It is a social work skill that transfers over into so many different things. Now, why is active listening important? Well, give me a minute and we'll dive right into it. So, I am thankful that you are following me. If this is your first time in following me and catching me live, please type into the comments first time #new. If you have been following me for a while, whether it was on Facebook, Instagram, or any other mode of video recording, then you hashtag into the comments. I don't want to say old, follower. Let's do that. Hashtag follower. Because I want you to always feel welcomed when we're having conversations. So, now, what we're talking about. We're talking about active listening. It is a skill and a technique that needs to be developed over time. People always think that, oh, I heard you. I hear what you're saying. I got it. But do they really? Have they really heard and understood what was being said to them? Or are they listening just enough to wait to jump into the conversation? What do I mean by that? I'm having a conversation and a dialogue with you right now. And if you did not pick up pen and paper to write down notes, then you may have a photographic memory or a auditory memory where you can remember exactly what I've said since the beginning of this conversation. Okay? If I was to ask you, what are we talking about? Why are we talking about it? If you can't repeat back to me what was said to you, then you're not actively listening. Now, for example, if I am actively listening to someone, I will pay attention to their eye movement. I will pay attention to their hand gestures. I will pay attention to their body language so that I will know when there's a subject or an issue or an idea that they don't. Okay, so what do I mean when I say they don't quite agree with? People say one thing out of their mouth, but their body language says completely something different. So if someone was to say to you, do you agree with that? And you say, uh-huh. Your body language says something completely different than what your vocal says. Okay, so while I said, uh-huh, the tone of my voice and my body language says, I don't agree. I don't get what you're saying. Okay, so that's what I mean when we're talking about actively listening. We have to fully immerse our train of thought to follow the idea that someone else is speaking. Okay, so what does that have to do with writing? Give you a good example. I was at an event today that dealt with suicide. And as a survivor of attempts of suicide, I've had 3, I was able to hear and to listen to what the presenters were saying. And I was able to relate because I wasn't waiting to jump in to tell my story. I was waiting to see and waiting to hear whether or not their story was anywhere near my story. So I was actively listening. Another key point that I can say about my active listening was that I took notes. These are my notes. Simple phrases that will evoke or invoke a memory in me when I reread them to relate back to the emotion that was associated with that particular phrase. Okay? That's what I mean when we actively listen. We participate fully in the conversation. So that when the presenter got off stage and I was maybe 15, 20 minutes later, I had a question, I was able to bring back the entire conversation of what that person said that provoked my question, so that I refreshed their memory to what they were saying and I still got an answer to my question. That's what I mean when we're talking about actively listening. We fully participate in the conversation. It's like double dutch. You ever been in a double dutch match? And I know guys don't do double dutch, but related to wrestling. You are waiting for that prime opportunity to go in, to jump in, to pounce, to do what it is that you set out to do. You're paying attention to nothing around you except for that opportune moment. But in the interim, you've missed everything else that was associated with that moment. When we talk about writing, and we talk about getting in touch and in tune with our feelings enough to write, we have to actively listen, even if we're listening to ourselves. How many times have you written a paragraph or you've written a story and you've gone back and you reread it? But your mood was different, your surroundings was different, the time of day was different, and the state of mind that you were in changed. You read it in a very different voice. So do you not pay attention to that voice because it's not what you originally wrote? Or do you pay attention to the additions and subtractions that you need to make, or the explanation or the further clarity that you need to give to the paragraph, that you need to give to the story? Don't just write in thesis statements. Tell the story. And by telling the story, you have to actively listen. Because one thing is true and one thing is fair, that every piece of fiction has truth in it, and it evolves from a situation that affected you, whether directly or indirectly. So, this is Michelle Mickey Jones, and I am a business owner, a social worker, a writer, a poet, and I am here to help other writers write well. Have a great day.